Hey y'all, Mac here. Today I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the Ember Fusillade build on Blood Mage, as well as provide some insight as to what's going to change progression-wise on it. So, first and foremost, I want to say that I have made a very large pivot on the build and have decided to go along with mechanics that have been discovered by Captain Lance, and originally I was kind of skeptical on whether or not Ember Fusillade on its own would be like good enough to clear. Um, and frankly, I still think its clear is worse than the variation with cast on crit. But this new version is pretty much unkillable in most scenarios. Like unless you're one shot past like 6k life, it's pretty hard to die. And a couple key items I had my eye on, like Defiance of Destiny, is included in this setup of the build, which makes a lot of sense. And I was originally thinking about like swapping to it and doing some small item swaps. But what I realized is that there is something a little bit more broken in this build, and that's going to be the new mastery, Sacrifice of Blood. So this basically gives you 1 life regen per 8 life spent in the past 8 seconds. So in that 8-second window, however much you cast your spells and um, essentially spend as much life as possible, gives you an absurd amount of life regen. In Captain Lance's video, most recent one, he hit that 9999 life regen, and so you're just regenerating your full life pool every second. More on top of that, this also gives 50% more life cost of skills, which scales the Adalui's bloodletting support lineage. And not only that, with this much damage, as well as with rathpiths, which also adds even more max life cost to the spell, we're just like doubling up on everything and just like scaling damage by scaling the defensive. And one key thing about PoE and PoE 2 is that if you're able to scale both defensives, mobility, and life at the same time, mobility is mainly just having more access to gear and like the triple move speed boots and whatnot. But basically, if you're able to scale at the very least defensives and offense at the same time, such as like instack and build in PoE 1, the build ends up being really strong and usually has a much higher ceiling than if you can't do that. With the old variation cast on crit setup, the build's soft capped with Sire of Shards, and while you could put on Rathpith and the one, it would play a lot similarly to the build I played last league, and I wasn't really wanting to do that exact same setup again. Instead, this new setup isn't a cast on crit setup because we're running Calm's Heart. And what Calm's Heart does is it takes away all your spirits, so you can't reserve anything, but it does give you an absurd amount of life as well as some stun threshold. The biggest thing here, obviously, is the flat life. And as we know, flat life scales our damage through Rathpith Globe, and Rathpith Globe in turn adds more cost to the Ember Fusillade and other spells that we cast, which in turn plays into the Sacrifice of Blood node. So this cycle basically gives you an absurd amount of sustain. If I'm now casting my spells here, you can see that the life regen just keeps going up, and it'll keep going up and keep going up and keep going up until you hit kind of like a soft cap at that 8 seconds. And this can be scaled up even more with nodes down here, specifically these 5 nodes, which is going to give you 55% increased life recovery rate. That is going to be insane. The only downside is you need the Bulwark, Intuitive Leap, or whatever it's called, the Impossible Escape for PoE 2 that gives you Bulwark, which currently right now I think there's only one for like 20 div, and it was kind of outside of my budget when I swapped. I decided to swap it ASAP and also make this video as soon as possible because I know the prices of everything is just going to jump, and a lot of my viewer base has obviously like complained about prices. So I don't want this video to basically give you the idea that you can't play the old variation just because this new one exists. The old variation, I was farming Delhi 3 to 5 mod maps with absolutely no problem. And I would only die occasionally, which is, again, not that big of a problem when you have at least 2 portals. And it's honestly probably still faster clear-wise. But this setup that I have right now kind of just takes damage up to a whole new level as well as tankiness. And one more thing, the only reason, again, I'm running Veil of the Night is because after I made the swap and bought Defiance, a good Calm's Heart, rathpith, and all the necessary other items, I kind of ran out of money. So the only way to really um, counteract that was to play Veil of the Night and just get really crappy gear that like didn't really have any res on it but had a lot of life. And this is it's still been very serviceable. I've been able to do the same maps that I have been with absolutely no issue. I can tank volatiles and like ground effects that are elemental damage when I have 0 reses. And besides that, I don't really know what else to say. This build is definitely gonna have a pretty insane ceiling. I can see myself scaling this up to a crazy degree, and I hope I can at least make that portion of the build progression interesting. As far as the other cast on crit build, again, I said it's soft cap where it stood previously on my day 4 update, so I believe that is a comfortable place for the build to sit. I will try my best to try and get a PoE Ninja snapshot or a functional guide for that version of the build, but further updates on this setup is going to be largely centered around this new scaling for it. So if you really want a in-depth guide for this right now, go to Captain Lance's YouTube. He does a lot of really good content, and he's a pretty well-trusted content creator as well. But do expect the prices of everything to keep going up, especially this jewel. So grab one if you can. But yeah, I just wanted to make that update really quick, keep everybody in the loop. Since I don't have that much time to make fully written guides, I have to just resort to like a quick video update. So yeah, hope everyone has a good rest of the week, and until next time, ciao.